23 Cannes Lions and a couple more Grand Prix and all the achievements in the creative world.
But I think there's this sort of about enough kind of thing within the creative industries, which is about mental health and these awards. You get to Mars and what happened? Funding, gone. Overwhelmingly, people who work in advertising have no concept that that's the only bit they're actually really specialists in.
So, hi everyone, this is Mike on podcast again, Mike speaking, special edition. We are in Sydney again, and now I'm so happy to sit here with Kieran Antill, my friend who I actually get to know like 3 or 4 years ago, pretty much accidentally through his sister. Kieran, you've been kind of a rock star in marketing world because you have a lot of achievements behind you. Could you introduce yourself and what is nowadays your focus and what you are now working on?
Yeah, sure. Where do I start? So I'm the director of a company called Nilo, which is a business design consultancy. So we look at, I guess, whole of company marketing. So looking at how organizations can kind of look at marketing from a whole business point of view, as opposed to there's a marketing department or a marketing individual. And how I sort of got there has sort of been through sort of a creative, my creative background. I'm sure we'll get into a bit more kind of stuff. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. First thing, what I remember that you actually had many experience from here, but even from the US, you spent like 5 years working in Leo Burnett New York City. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that you have a chance to work with the multiple international big brands. Like, could you name some of them which you like the most, or what do you remember the most you enjoyed a lot?
I mean, New York was interesting because I think one of the major clients I had to work on was Samsung. So even though I was in New York, I had to go to Chicago a lot for like product embargoes and the like. And then I was the global creative director for Samsung appliances. Doesn't sound very sexy, and it's not very sexy.
Okay.
But it meant that I was on planes to go see electronic shows and stuff. So I'd be like in Korea and back and forth. So with the Samsung thing and being global, it's about where it's going everywhere. So you're in New York, you're sort of everywhere else. And more locally, it was things like Chobani yogurt, but then also we were we were a total experiment as an agency. So we made a lot of our own platforms and things like that as well. So New York writes itself as an example of one of those, which we ended up working with the Village Voice newspaper for that kind of stuff.
Nice. I also found out about you that you have something like 23 Cannes Lions and a couple more Grand Prix and all the achievements in the creative world, which is also related to the business and KPIs and things like that, because nowadays these competitions not anymore just about doing nice stuff, but also stuff that actually works.
Yeah.
So is there also, it was like a huge part of your work in New York, or is it like whole your career you were like applying to these kind of competitions and things like that?
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation, but
I know. Sorry for that.
The awards are definitely part of it. Awards, particularly creative awards shows, such as Cannes Lions, D&AD, and others. I think mainly my context with those things is we have to remember that they're big businesses themselves. And you think about what they are. They're businesses that are banking that their target audience, which is people working in creative advertising and related fields, want shiny trophies.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good guess, but they want recognition, and that recognition is what has kind of, I guess, shaped advertising culture where, you feel like you've done something good. Even when you mention the Effies, effectiveness awards, you have to also remember that a lot of those things are what can be measured as effective. And so that eliminates a lot of things that are very effective, but they weren't measured. And for something to be measured, it had to be measured at a baseline. You had to have, the client or agency had to invest enough to say, okay, where is, let's say, brand awareness today? We've done something, and then what changed and over what period? But disqualifies a lot of entrants to stuff. So yes, I have been part of winning a lot of creative awards and effectiveness awards. That's partly being part of a culture that loves doing that kind of stuff. So I've worked with Leo Burnett, RGA, and J. Walter Thompson in different cities. And a lot of those bigger players play that game.
Mm-hmm.
So being part of that game, you go on and try and do those things. And, the particular offices that I worked on were sort of focused on those.
I really like your humble approach because for a lot of people from my agency or our clients are all these competitions some kind of like a big spotlight of course, because it's, as you mentioned, it's a part of the game where you get some recognition for your work, different one than just let's say more sold products or like money from the client and things like that. So
I think on the award stuff, it's there's fantastic stuff that comes from it, but I think a game is a good way to put it. People game it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So,
So there are people who do live for it, and they're looking at that recognition of needing to do it. But I think there's this sort of not spoken about enough kind of thing within the creative industries, which is about mental health and these awards. These awards are extrinsic awards.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not intrinsic. They're not like I've done a great job or I feel like I've contributed to a team and we're creating something great.
Mm-hmm.
They are, it's only good if a jury said it's good. And there's faults in the sense that, they're on 12-month cycles as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like think about some of the greatest achievements in humankind. It wasn't created in 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, it even disqualifies something if you put it out 1 year. It's not valid for the year after.
I got you.
And so I feel like from a creative point of view, there's a lot of people sweating it a lot and very stressed and feeling like they're not being successful if they haven't got some trophy. I think there's an unhealthy balance So yes, I've been part of that. Yes, there's still a big part of me that sort of says that is a portion, a slither of what I think creativity is.
Yeah. But the gaming or the whole concept of gamification is a nice part of some of the. But you describe it well. I also had noticed that you are sport lover. Like you used to play basketball on the high level. So is that something what you think is somehow interconnect with doing things in marketing, like that the people who actually do the sport on the high level and have this ability of the teamwork or achieve stuff or be a bit competitive, it's all this probably useful stuff for the marketing and advertising or whatever you do too, right? Or is it the part where you balance?
I haven't drawn that kind of. I certainly haven't proactively done that. I haven't said, I will go play basketball and then I will turn that into something else. For me personally, it's probably about personal identity. When I was younger, I was a sports person, right? That was what I did. And then that got more focused into being a basketball player. And then I went to a college in America and I played basketball. That was kind of my identity. During that time, I took a photography course. And I remember this feeling of like, you can't be wrong. I remember coming back to this, the professor, and we're doing photography, and the assignment was photographing shadows, a very basic kind of idea of that. But it came back and I remember that feeling where I was like, so is it right? Did I shoot the right photograph? And I remember his reaction, like, you can't be right or wrong. And I fell in love with that idea of that it's not about, I was studying biology at the time. So it's not about, is this correct chemically or not? And then from there, I think that sort of fell into creativity. And then all of a sudden my identity became much more about the arts and then later into other things. So
That's cool. I also noticed that you are kind of constant learner, right? That's like, I remember first time when I saw you and we had this discussion about marketing and creativity and business and part of this. And you mentioned that you are actually studying in Berlin, where is the School of Creative Leadership, a kind of MBA, where you also traveled a lot. First, what comes to my mind, like, oh my God, who can fly from Australia to Berlin just to study and fly back and things like that? But
you can.
You can, of course. But it should. Was it tough actually? By the time comes
the Berlin School of Creative Leadership is a really interesting school in the sense that any MBA you've got to look at, and this is not an ad for them.
Sure. No paid partnership at all.
But what I will say is one of the things so fascinating about that particular MBA program is that people come from all over the world because you're a student for like 2 weeks. That's a module. So even though you may have a professional job, you put that to the side and you go there and you're a student for 2 weeks. So that takes a bit of rewiring to be like, it's not a part-time thing. It's full.
Mm-hmm.
3 of the modules in Germany, and then the other 2 are split up in Shanghai. It can move around, but Shanghai with China and Japan, the city can change. And then we'll be associated with Berkeley or San Francisco and New York.
Cool.
And the syllabus will change depending on which companies you may go visit and stuff. So you do the Silicon Valley kind of tour, and everyone tells you what catering that they offer.
Oh yeah,
Twitter or what is now X and Dropbox and
okay.
And so hearing from other perspectives, but because everyone's from different areas where you're working together, it's like, wow, you're trying to understand how people from Brazil think and where they're starting their place, or someone from your team maybe from Switzerland or Italy or something.
Nice.
So regardless of what the topic is, regardless of the instruction, that I think is it requires a bit of mental elasticity.
So you get pretty much nice network from the school, and also what was like, did you find out there are some like completely new insight to you even after the years working here for the big players, even in the States? Then you came to this Berlin school. Did you find out there's something really like interesting what you would like to now like put it up from all?
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge is there's more. It opens more questions than answers.
Yeah.
I think anything like that, if you're trying to learn new things or put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you walk away with more questions, and it's almost like someone's putting light on stuff, and you're like, oh, I didn't know it was there. So now I've got these things to also think about. I left America and I started there, and then I moved back to Melbourne actually in Australia. And the challenge I had was I knew there was all this stuff I didn't know, but the organization I'm working for at that time was J. Walter Thompson. They didn't know it either. Oh, and so you're like, so in some ways it's more comfortable staying ignorant and just not knowing all those other things. But when you do an MBA or any other continued learning, you're that's only the beginning, I think. And I think I'm still on that path of like, hang on, have I answered any of this?
I got you. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I completely understand what you mean, 100%. Like being the kind of disruptive guy who just tried to open this question even in the systems of the companies where everything seems like it's actually working. Yeah. Because it works so long and for this many years. So it's kind of any kind of change like that is always difficult. Yeah. But for people who likes changes, because I find out in my life that there are people who like changes more than the others because they just don't like stereotypes, or they are like more like constant learners, and there are also people who just loves to have everything like fixed and working and more like, and most I realized that when I can polarize like that, like these people are mostly, some of them are good for different departments in the company and some of them are for the other one.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, are we talking about a person who's got a fixed mindset and can that change? I don't know the answer to that. Oh yeah. There's definitely, you meet people at a point in their journey where you say, okay, they're not ready to learn anything new. And you might meet them going, well, I know there's more to do. There's more here, but you don't have the answers. And so, I'm definitely not saying I had the answers and then I'm in work roles where everyone's ignorant. No, actually, I don't know how to change it, but I know it's not right. And you're still trying to figure out those things. So it's sort of, I think I like that idea that it's people have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. But I think that that's something that can change at any moment in time for any individual. Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'm just thinking like that after the years working in the agencies, after you did this school, then you started, guys, the Nilo, the company, what you are running nowadays here in Australia. Yeah. Like, what was the point actually? Like, you were already tired from all these pitches and big works for the big clients, or was it like that kind of feeling that you want to have something which is going to be really yours project? Yeah, no, I was burnt out. I was fired. Okay. Basically, I don't know what to do, right? Like, okay. I was in J. Will Thompson, Melbourne, and I'm basically, definitely don't have any more. I'm just frustrated and wanting to do better and different creative things and change things. I mean, one of the things we're looking at was innovation. And I'm like, cool, we want to innovate products like beyond advertising. And you can't help but look around and go, yeah, but we've hired nobody with that experience and we've not training anyone with that. Okay. So how do we decide that we're going to be about these things? And I think that you see this a lot in organizations. There's a will to do something, so they name it, and they say, we'll go do it. It's a bit Field of Dreamsy, you know, like, I'll tell the client we'll do this, and then we'll figure out how we do it. And I guess it can work, but it's not a real commitment. It's just saying, we're going to have an innovation lab. Or
I've seen a lot of this in digital transformation strategies.
Okay, well, but what's your opinion on it? How do you do it? Who did you bring on? What did you change about your organization that makes such a dramatic change? So, you know, like I said, I just got to a point where I was like, this wasn't working, you know, managing everything from like, you know, department store kind of needs of like catalogs and things, which I'm like never interested in, because it's just rote stuff, you know, it's like that. So it was frustrating. And then I met a guy who works in team coaching and positive psychology. And what started to sort of come into shape for me was a bit like, this is the point that I'm trying to get to, is whether we're doing any creative exercise where we're developing a new product, we're working through different ad campaigns, at the end of the day, it's all about people. And in the creative industries, we have this, I guess, sort of habit, I think, which is you're going to come up with these creative ideas and everyone's going to go, wow. I mean, hell, they give you a trophy for it, right? Like, yeah. And I think that perpetuates this idea, even though agencies will say we collaborate with our team, we collaborate with our clients, we're client partners, they say all this stuff. At the end of the day, there is contractual stuff happening there. How many head hours have you spent on this? And it's a bit of a tension there. But we do this thing where we get a brief, or we work through with the client. First of all, that's the most creative part. What should the brief be? What should we even try and solve with this business? Like, that's where all these creative thinkers and lateral thinkers and anyone who feels that they belong in that space should be in there. Like, the solution's one thing, but like, particularly an ad agency, you know, it's going to end up being an ad. You know what I mean? Like, But what's the strategy? Like, that's the decision to decide whether we even should go down the path of advertising, or should we try and change products, or, you know, should we solve this in a completely different way? Are we advertising what is a dud product? We should be. So we're not we don't have enough creative people, and that's not a role, right? Again, it's not a person's role. We don't have enough creative capabilities stream in those client conversations and within the client to be trying to ask what should the question actually be. You know, that really is sort of the main focus, the shift that's been there, which is how do all these people actually work together? So I didn't know what positive psychology was. I didn't know what team coaching necessarily was, although I was in sports for many years.
But now then the dots coming together after,
because you start realizing, I mean, the real words are things like stakeholder management and, you know, like kind of like how is everyone coming along on the journey? So the bad habit I think I was talking about was the idea that you take this away and you go and be really clever, and then you present back and the client goes, oh, we're so happy we asked you and you guys came up with this incredible thing. And I think that's part of it. But particularly if you're talking about brand development, the people who work for the organization that you're branding, they have to buy into it. They have to understand it. They have to believe it, and they have to hire for it, and they have to train for it ongoing. And so if you did it separate and then came back and showed them, it's like anything. I'm impressed. It's cool, but it's not ours. And so therefore it requires a lot more work on the back end of that wow presentation to be like, okay, we're bringing people along on the journey. It's hard to bring people along the journey if you've already got the answer.
Okay.
So
it just reminds me, was it like when you get together with Ross, is your partner's name?
Yes.
Yeah. And you started this business, was it like that you already seen the why? Like if I use the framework of Simon Sinek, and I would be thinking, you already see the why, all this like messing up different roles and people around what was happening in marketing fields in many different areas. Then you also see the what, and then he's can bring somehow the how through the psychology, through the, I don't know, mentoring stuff, workshops and things like that. And then you start putting together all your know-hows and finding something what I wanted to ask, what you are doing now, guys, together, or what you are working on now. Is it like that?
Yeah.
Simplified?
Yeah, I think I would love it to be as elegant as that.
Okay.
As far as like the way it's explained. And I think academically, a lot of models, including Simon Sinek's 3 golden circles, are lovely in their explanation, but they're often spoken about retrospectively. And I don't think that's how business works. It is how the parts all work together, and there's great logic in that. That's a good mental model. But the reality is you meet people and you say, well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe we could do a bit of that. We should. And then you have to start realizing what bits you don't have, and then you try and realize what's not working. Well, if we go and do that, that'll help here. And, so I think that there is the mental model, and then there is the way that is actually, implemented, and it's not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many models nowadays and so many structures. And that's kind of a bridge to think what you are now working on, because you're actually writing a book and you are getting ready kind of like a learning system for market, not even marketing industry, more like a doing business part, mostly on the marketing. What I found out about is what you mentioned me, it's kind of all these experience, your past years from the agencies and doing business with many different big size clients, small size clients, it's all together gathered and nowadays trying to solve problems you find out on the way. Or is it also like that there are some new challenges in company world or in the marketing world what you are trying to solve? Or where this came this idea? Like your book is called The Anatomy of Marketing. Well, what was the initial idea of it actually? That's the right question.
I guess, like I said, when we started Nilo, Ross and I knew that these combinations of capabilities and what we're talking about are needed. But it didn't mean that we knew how to operationalize them or even how to present them to clients to say, here's what we mean and how we would do it. So it had been a journey in figuring out the best balance of that. And where we had our early success was we would be looking at purpose. And so we had a book, this is a workshop book, but it was called a purpose framework book. And it was looking at how companies are all talking about purpose or mission or values or mantras, ethos, right? And not only all companies are doing that, but all different agencies and consultancies at different levels are using the same language. The social media agency is saying the same thing. The digital website company that you're doing is bringing this up. And you've also got consultants just working in things that just values, but not understanding how that can connect. So with that work, it was looking at the relationship between those and putting it into a narrative. As an example of this, the most famous mission, I would say, in our generational life has been, the mission to Mars. Like that was sort of the story. We still know this, right? And I don't know the full details around, but interestingly, you get to Mars and what happened? Funding gone. You know what I mean? Because you stop talking about something beyond. Now I got you. That narrative has been picked up now with the Teslas and the Amazons and stuff helping the world. Where we're talking about, hey, let's go be belong. But if they had focused less on the mission, which is a strategic thing, we're going to build this. Why? The vision is that because we believe that there is something worth finding out there. You know what I mean? You start realizing that what is the functional meaning for having a purpose? Because if you rock up to a company and you say, we need a purpose, a vision, a mission, like why?
It's so uncommon nowadays. Or maybe it's starting to be opposite here, but in Europe there are still a lot of companies trying to find out what is their purpose, and they want it to have as a mantra for everything what they do.
Well, my first question is going to be, what do you mean by purpose? And what do you mean by vision? And what do you mean by values? Or do you have other words? And how do they actually relate? So that was kind of where we began. Like even things like values, you can have a social media agency. And I only say that because it's fast turnaround. Saying, we should talk about the values of this company because, clients care. I mean, customers care, and we should be talking about these values. But if you fail to understand that the values of an organization should be, deep within the company strategy, this is, we're going to be successful on our mission because of this vision, because we have this higher purpose. Then we need to instill these values and hire for them and create spaces for those. And these things need to be linked to things like remuneration strategies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not at all really about a social media post. It's actually, the CEO's bonus will be linked to not living these values.
Oh, I got you.
So we do these things. We take the exact words, but we use them in these very superficial ways. We don't explain how they all connect.
Yeah, and in my experience, I've seen many times that the values of big companies are so generic, so it's sometimes even hard to find out what actually does it mean, because what I'm trying to live in our company, that values should help us to do the decisions. Like if to decide to fire someone, if to decide to do not do some client, for example, I don't know, cigarette brand, because it's not part of our values, or do not pick the shortcut than the long-term strategy, which is not that efficient by the money, but so what I'm thinking about, the values should help us actually to do decisions like that.
And so if you're doing them isolated, you don't sort of realize, well, we want these values to, you mentioned Simon Sinek before, and he has picked up on this narrative of this idea of having a journey. So you picture everything as a journey.
Okay.
So, if we think of it's a road trip as an example, well, the sun is our purpose. This is how we're going to orientate, right? Or you could use a North Star if you're a sailor, right? But that's ever present. That's out of industry. That has nothing to do with, we want to be the best bank, or we want to be the best shoe brand, right? This is what we actually wholeheartedly believe. And this would be the equivalent to Simon Sinek's why, right?
Okay.
This is your...
Okay.
And then your vision is going to be, okay, on that horizon, where do we believe that the space is, right? Like, are we driving straight into the mountain, or no, we're going to go over there? And then the mission is the road that you're building to get to where you're going. So this narrative that you're telling your staff or your customers, this is where we're going. And the values are basically like, how do we want to behave along the road on this road trip? Are we going to, Silicon Valley, get in the car and drive and like no stopping for pee breaks and like no one goes home, don't have a baby, Or are we going to be singing show tunes and enjoying ourselves? And how long it takes us to get there is how long it takes us to get there. And I'd like to think you're instilling those to say, because this is what will make us successful. If we're going at that breakneck speed that a Silicon Valley startup may feel that it has to go before its funding runs out, that's probably not a good way to run healthcare. Or
I got
something where this is a war of attrition. Like we have to be able to. There's no crashing. We have to be able to keep going. So that's where we began. A long path down that, but that was our beginning of sort of actually going. You know what the biggest problem is? That people don't understand each other. We are saying different things. So we'll do stakeholder engagement. Ross will lead up the teams that do this. The qualitative research and engaging with different stakeholders. So that could be figuring out ways to engage a 5,000 plus employee team, or it could be a small team, and then that's easier to engage. But it will be one-on-ones or small groups, or there is other ways to do versions of those to try and give everyone a bit of a voice to then bring everyone along on the same journey to kind of get everyone speaking the same language. But the first thing is you can't put it in a survey that says, what do you think our vision should be? Because not everyone answers that the same way. So the first part is you have to say, okay, these are the words we're using and what they mean and how they fit together in a narrative. Now let's talk about what are you saying. So very pragmatic people generally focused on the mission. We're building the best car. They building the product. People, I'm building the thing, right? Some dreamers are a little bit more like they understand that they want to. It's not really about the products. The products could change. We're still going for the same vision.
Mobility, or
And so they almost feel like they're not understanding each other, but they are. They're just talking about different altitudes of the same story.
That's true.
So that's more in the purpose area. And I think what we found was that we would do a lot of that work. But then companies go, great, let's make a poster, and then go back to business. And that's a disconnect a lot of companies have. It's like we've done the thing, but then business is something different. These are the same thing. Otherwise, you totally wasted your money. Like this has to be a hard-nosed business consideration of what kind of culture and space you're trying to create, and a narrative that is going to resonate externally and internally, and how everything works.
Yeah, but it's true. That's happened many times. Like the company invests into defining the purpose and setting up the values, refreshing them. Oh, some of them luckily also join the people in the company, so they really start to live it. But then always ends in some PDF or something.
Yeah.
In someone's office, maybe in some cases it's on the walls in the company office.
On screensaver.
Or screensaver, whatever. Yeah, maybe it's a new claim of the whole company when you are lucky.
It's a tagline.
Or tagline or whatever. But then, yeah, it's true that sometimes it's hard for the company to transmit all these things into the real business actions and trying to find out the way of make it happen actually in many different areas in action steps. And the interesting idea, what I found out about Holio concept and what is something what you work on in our book, is that the problem of not understanding to each other is not just on this level of understanding the vision and purpose, but it's going deeper and deeper in whole marketing segment actually. So could you more maybe explain the idea about the anatomy of the thing?
Yes. You took me over there because you mentioned Simon Sinek, and he does exist very high in that sort of thinking. But yeah, the anatomy of marketing is sort of a continuation of where we started to sort of say, well, hang on, we've got those things, but that's only one part. How else do other things connect? And I think that, firstly, we have to sort of, even for this conversation, say, what do we think marketing is, or what's the definition of marketing? So we've been working with a lot of different companies, agencies as well, and sort of, interviewing a lot of people globally, asking, what do you think marketing is and what's that right?
Actually, I would use this question, and please, guys, everyone, please just type it down to our comments. Like, what do you think is marketing in your company? And well, I would be so happy to see like what's going to be the...
And pause it here because I'm about to say what I think.
Yeah. And pause it. And 5, 4, 3, everyone put it down in comment and then we can come back. Yeah.
I think what we find is that most people get to a pretty similar answer, but their actions are very, very different.
Okay.
So the word is used interchangeably, almost globally. Well, I would say globally. When people say marketing, they're referring to promotion. And so when someone says you're the CMO or you say you work in marketing, people, even at a barbecue you might be at, very Australian, at the...
like national sport here.
Yeah, it's the global version of barbecues.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
True. We would talk about marketing. I mean, there's the classic idea of marketing is that it covers all 4 Ps, which is product, price, place, and promotion. Product being what is the product and or service that you're actually trying to sell or create money for. The price, so what is the actual price, but also what's the price framing of that, and also the model. Is it a SaaS? Is it a just straight transaction, etc. And then place, which is distribution, and then promotion. And promotion we split into channels and content. So they're obviously related, but again, the behavior across industries is media buying agencies generally, and then they're separated by actual content. And that kind of like ad agency fits within that promotional content. And I would say that overwhelmingly the people who work in advertising have no concept that that's the only bit they're actually really specialists in. They have a voice in other things, but they're generally not involved in those things. And even when I see ad agencies do products, they generally do them as promotional products. They're actual on-the-shelf thing. That's not the case. We've, I think, mentioned Anomaly before in the past. They've played with that, but still, overwhelmingly, most of their stuff is in the promotional space. And you can extrapolate that out to the seven Ps, which adds process, physical evidence. Physical evidence is a very clunky way to try and have another P that basically means content, right? Like it is how do I physically show what the service is. It's easier just to say it's promotional content, and process and people, but they can be explained in the 4. It doesn't really matter how you do it as a company, but you have to understand that marketing is more than those things. What we find is that across an organization, regardless of the size, not everybody who has a marketing title is actually in control of all those things. So you have people who are chief marketing officers and they're not in control of all those levels. And yet they're the one who has to answer, why is now marketing going very well? And so a more sophisticated answer is really to understand that marketing has to be taken as a company-wide function, right? So that was an approach to company-wide marketing. It's not about the department or even individual's role. So if you're a CEO or if you're on a board and you're ignorant to marketing, that this is the opportunity to say, okay, hang on, I need to know. If you're in an organization post-industrial revolution, you're in a marketing. You have marketing functions. You have marketing responsibilities. So let's say you're a gold miner and you're digging well, you're good, right? You're in this industrial thing. You're doing this bit. You're not really in charge. But if you're in charge of product, if you're in charge of people, if you're in charge of anything to do with how the organization is going to present itself internally to staff and externally, because I think it's important to understand if employees don't understand the brand, they are authoring all the touch points, right? So they're either briefing an agency correctly or incorrectly and saying to them, we don't want creative, just give us some junk. Okay, or they obviously haven't got it. So it's really hard to find a role where you say you don't have a responsibility for marketing. So it means that of those parts of marketing, you have people who don't think of themselves in marketing. They think it's someone else's thing, and yet they're there. But then you've also got people who have a marketing hat on, that they think of themselves as marketers, but they don't really understand. They don't
all the concept.
They don't do the other bits.
Yeah.
So the anatomy of marketing is our efforts to try and take the most objective view we can. Try to be dumb, not hard.
Yeah.
Right? And just go, okay, your experience works against you as well, because you kind of go, this is what we've done in the past. So a lot of it is talking to other people and trying to get an overview of what that anatomy actually could look like. What is it? What is everything there? And to continue that analogy, it's a little bit like debate is good, but as we've spoken about, like as a physio and a chiropractor, they're not debating over where the anatomy sits. They're debating on how to treat it. And that's healthy debate. So different agencies saying, hey, here's how I'd treat it. But the anatomy and all the areas that marketing works across is the same.
Yeah, I was because I really love the concept and it made definitely sense. The only thing what I still try to find out is how, for example, our clients would behave when we seen million times the thing what you mentioned, like, okay, this is the sales role. And you have this concept in your head and you are just thinking, well, yeah, but the sales is part of your product. The sales is part of the whole marketing concept, what you guys doing together. But sometimes in the companies, even in the big one, the sales and marketing is somehow split it and everyone expect from the marketing just the communication and promotion. If you are lucky, maybe some branding of the product and some part of the customer experience too. What is, for example, the first reaction of companies or people who you are working on this concept, or you are explaining how does it work? Like, if do they see or do they get scared of the change of mindset in the companies where are this kind of robust segments which are split like sales or marketing, logistic, and not that work together much? Or you need to just go to the higher level in the...
I think you do. You need to get understanding at a higher level. And the understanding needs to be, and it's not hard to explain it, it's the rationale, the approach is that all things fit together, hence the analogy of marketing, that if you've got a crappy product, you're obviously wasting dollars advertising it. And even if you are selling it, if the product was better, more would sell. And I think anyone who's worked in physical products, digital products, if it's a great product, the ads pretty easy, right? You got to...
It's sell by itself.
Now, when you're spending a whole bunch of effort on trying to create ads as something, this product crap's another fucking chocolate candy bar on the market, let's try and get everyone to buy it. You got to spend millions of dollars trying to convince people that this is the right thing, right? And that's sort of where a lot of businesses are at. And rather than actually going, okay, everything actually works together. And I think that we're at the beginning of this journey, just to make sure you're aware of that as well, that really we work on delivery, so the different areas that we actually do deliver in. But from a training and change management point of view, that's where our focus is steering, where we're working with organizations to go, okay, we're not getting the foundations and fundamentals of marketing understood. And we, first of all, need to have this understanding across the organization of how marketing actually functions across the whole business and how we all have a role to play.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily championing the marketing department. In many ways, we would be saying we're working with the marketing department, but if this marketing department is only in charge of promotion, they are a promotion department, and they should be friggin' proud of that and be super the best promotion department and chief promotion officer in the world. Like it's a big role just to do that.
Yeah.
But if we're reporting on is our marketing being effective, well, we all different parts of the department need to be reporting back on that and saying how are we working together, because the big toe and the heart have got to work together. You know what I mean? And they do different things. And so, understanding how we work together. And I think it's not agencies have got it figured out and clients don't. Agencies also need to understand what, even if they're a specialist agency, what they do and how important it is what they do to help the functioning of everything else. Or if they're a full service agency, they need to kind of understand, well, do you really deliver across everything? Because I have not met an agency or a consulting that truly does deliver
everything. It's true. And it's more difficult nowadays when the client has like 4 or 5 different agencies, different businesses, different approaches.
And that's what we want to get to, is where you've got those 4 or 5 agencies, they're all looking at the same anatomy, how everything fits together. And to clarify, the anatomy is not just the 4 Ps, right? That's the executional end of things. We're talking about how this connects to company strategy, and maybe we can talk through the details of that. When they've got that, now all of a sudden the agencies can actually say, cool, here's where I'm going to work together, here's where we're going to collaborate, here's how we're going to do it. This is the agency that's going to specialize in this moment here. Because we understand that, it's almost like we're saying, which organs are we part of? And, data and insights, I think, are the lifeline. They're the blood of this whole thing. You've got to keep feeding all these areas of your organization with new insights, innovations, thinking through those things, and new data of how things are actually kind of going as well. So
and happily nowadays the company has so much data, but the only problem is to read them properly, right? But that's another story. Like to find out the right insights in the details is a new crazy ability, and I really appreciate the people who can do it well.
Totally. I think AI can play a role in helping, kind of like condense these. It goes back to some of the fundamentals. I think that even with things like AI coming in fast, or hell, it's already here.
We already cleaning the sound of the train up to us.
Exactly. Because AI in this moment.
And switching maybe our English to the different like Spanish, Czech, and other languages in the video.
But with all that coming in, I think we need to know what to ask it. And I think that what makes me kind of go, oh, actually, this is not too much of a challenge, is to actually we have to just go back and go, okay, hang on, what do we mean? What's the common language here that we're trying to explain to each other? And then we can understand that. Because I find that when we're working with organizations, it's miscommunications and misunderstanding more than it is actually not understanding each other. It's just literally not sure.
And also a lot of money too. I mean, you mentioned the briefs and things like that, like the misunderstanding of both parts, even people to each other, but the client and agency side costs a lot of money. Because when you get a brief, then you deliver something, then you do like a second, third, fourth version just to try and find it out, actually to understand what was the expectation since day one.
Well, it's like data-driven. People like to say I'm a data-driven marketer. I don't like that phrase. At the same time, I would say, what do you mean by it? And tell me your thing, because I probably do agree with you. But it drives behavior where people are like, I can't do it unless the data tells me to do it. And I love that realization to go, every bit of data is historic. There is no data for the future. So you're saying that unless it's in the past, you don't know. So you are not using your imagination. You're not thinking strategically. You're not looking for a path forward unless history has told you. And that is just, I mean, how many times does that need to be disproven? So, and then it also drives bad behaviors. So the intent is good. However, people are then, marketers are notoriously bad scientists, and yet they're using scientific methods like, this thing worked at this, and you go, but there was no control.
Like the correlation and causality between the stuff in
So they're using data, but the data is not very good, and they're using data to just make themselves feel better about the decision.
That's true.
I think data is great when you say, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we believe our advantage is.
Mm-hmm.
As Roger Martin would say, this is about where we can play and how we can win.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're going. If it's playing out the way we believe that it will, then we would be wanting to hit these data points. This would be showing signs that it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You want to measure to see,
if is it working?
Does it look like we're actually
the
going?
path,
Is it winning? But if it's not all in service of where we're going, then you're just being reactionary, and you're basically, you might as well replace it with AI.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's also good, like when you mentioned the future thinking and the past thinking. I love when marketers put on the table a lot of hypotheses and you try to measure them, like if this can be true or how close is it to success, and then use it like, okay, this one is high probability, this one is lower probability, but still you never know before it happens. Like you can just count it, like, and as you mentioned, marketers using a lot of different statistics methods and methods how to actually work with data, but not always it's a correct one, or because we are not really good scientists. That's true. Yeah. What do you think actually, when I just step on the side about like testing creativity? I know I already asked you, but this is one of the topics which comes to me like every single day, that people are actually talking about if is it right to test creative concepts or campaigns before they just goes live, and expecting that you're testing something what is not ready, and
Yeah, I mean, look,
so on and so on.
To make my opinion clear, I want to say absolutely no. Like, it's pointless. However, if you create in a silo and you don't expose it to anyone, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about making an ad, making a new product, coming with a new idea, creating a new model called the anatomy of marketing. If you don't expose it to people, you can convince yourself you're right.
Oh yeah, it's one of the bias actually.
It's of course. So to say you don't want to show it to anyone before we're going to show it to billions is a little like we should. However, when someone then goes and let's measure it. So now we're talking about, are we doing research and development? We're testing our ideas. Or are we just looking to make sure we don't get fired? Like, let's validate. So we think, well, the testing said it was okay and it didn't work, but the testing is my reason that I should keep my job. Oh, yeah. You're actually arse covering. And let's say you did test creative concepts and this one got a 7.8 and that one got a 7.9.
What does it mean?
What the hell does that mean? And the decimal place in there. Yeah. And because we're humans, we're going to go, well, why would we choose the 7.8 one? Because there's a 7.9 one. It's like, but the data is crap in the first place. So what are we actually testing here? So I think it's good for product development, creative development to be socializing ideas and sharing ideas. But I feel like that's about the team learning and reacting and understanding. Because I think if you've ever been in testing, if you're someone who's created something, if you stay open, you can be like, okay, I don't think that person's saying it the right way, but I get what's frustrating them and I can solve it another way. And it might be turning the whole thing inside out.
Oh yeah.
But it's all still ways to test. But I don't like it when it's like we've finished it and we're going to like the real testing of the finishing thing is getting it out.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it happens to us also that a lot of tests are really based on like how you actually asking to people.
Totally.
So you all, it's again the same story about using the right methods, but it happens to us a million times that the clients come up with some idea and it was like, we are going to use this idea because it was already tested. Yeah. Or when you went through the test, you find out like, for example, questions on sustainability. When you ask people like if they would like to choose product A or product B, which is more sustainable, what do you expect that they are going to say?
I think it's a learning thing. It's hearing what people are saying, but again, qualitative groups, small groups. I mean, you got 10, 20, 30 people to come look at it. This is not, has no statistical, it would not stand up.
Yeah, it's more like
So it shouldn't be called, research. It's just like, we're just asking a bunch of people and trying to get some feedback. And I think that's good.
Yeah, that's true. Back to your book. When you get on the level of that you have this first phase behind you and you feel that all understand the same language, all naming the stuff what you're expecting, what is going to be the next step? Like in the view of using this methodology, because you mentioned like in the first step, there is the problem of misunderstanding. Yeah. So you need to somehow tune or set it up that everyone's named the stuff in the same system and understand the whole complexity of the marketing and impact in the company. What's going to be in the next step?
I think it's important to understand that one of the I guess, philosophies that we have is don't invent anything new. Right? Like, so our job and what we're trying to do is glue things together, right? Explain the glue, not force them together. But, and I can share some stuff for anyone later.
Yeah, we will put it under the podcast in the comments.
Just so I'm talking with.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
but a lot of that is looking at a lot of the best models, a lot of this thinking, and yet acknowledging that they have not worked together. And they have not designed these things together, and therefore we're referencing them all the time. You only have to turn on LinkedIn or something and you see everyone referencing a lot of the same stuff, but they're not actually saying, okay, well, how do all these things actually connect? So firstly, that's what we're trying to actually get to, is this idea of an objective view of the anatomy of marketing, which is an analogy to say, how does actually everything work together? That would be a huge win. For agencies, for clients,
for even academics.
Having academics to say, yeah, here's how. And great if there's debate, right? But like to understand how it is. Now, the actual words, if a particular organization wants to call things certain things, that's fine. But like it doesn't change the fact that it's still the same thing. We're just going to call it a slightly different name. But a lot of the terms we're talking about are not making new terms. They're terms that people are already using. They're just not necessarily the relationship they have between each other. So that would be huge. And I think for the growth of our company, obviously there's the creative and innovation side of things, but the area that we're looking to grow is this idea of the change management, of getting organizations to understand it as a team, as an organization. If you read a great book, let's say it's a great book on marketing, you read do a course, an MBA, you've got the problem that you return to your organization, as I've experienced, and you go, oh, okay, no one else read this book. They didn't read all the bits that I'm feeling. So by having, team education, you're learning together and you're challenging together. So we would liken it to, agile methodology.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Where there's origins of who created agile methodology. However, it's been embraced and then people are talking about it. And I think it's still finding its way and it's still misinterpreted.
Oh, yeah, true. Like, I don't know any company who actually had a full 100% of agile as is described in these books.
Exactly. But it opens up some of those conversations. It says, how can we do things better?
Oh, yeah.
And that's really what we're looking at. So you end up kind of saying, okay, we're going to teach what I would say is a company-wide approach to marketing. I don't think we're talking about anything controversial.
Okay.
Everyone's going, yeah, that's what we mean. But do you understand each other?
Oh, yeah. I got it. That's somehow you are putting all these puzzles together and helping to understand. And it's actually great because my experience, I was as pretty not similar course like you did MBA. Mine was more like a license course, which was just 1 month, not for 2 years, but it was at the Harvard University. And there was a nice thing called humanizing the brand, which is kind of like type of methodology, a really specific one, like how to think about the brand. And I just came back to agency and to our clients and I was like, yeah, this is the great thing and I love it. And then where to start, like how to make this even happen.
And again, on those ones, I would say, cool, what's the definition of brand? Because, and again, I'm sure there was a lot of
and what does it mean humanizing, and how is it related to other frameworks what we already use from Lesbian and Margaretson and the other ones.
So the definition of brand that we find works the best is it's the reputation of your business. Because while it doesn't have to be the only answer people are looking at, a CEO, a board, they can see their role and responsibilities within that. The brand equals the reputation of this business. And that's why we created this word called brand. The brand is what comes back, right? We can say this is what our brand means. It's what you hope it means, what you're trying to communicate. But if you go and survey whoever, we could be focused on a target audience or a wider population, what do they think of this brand? That is it. Now, if a CEO gives a speech, nothing to do with advertising, right? It's going to affect the brand.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're like, okay, yet you can be in conversations where when you say the word brand, you walk back into those clients, depending on their levels of their own experience, and you say, hey, we're looking at humanizing the brand. And they go, yeah, we like our logo. Oh, man. Like you have to realize then straight away, okay, your definition of brand is very, very narrow. It's obviously closer to branding, and it is this visual branding.
Visual expression. Yeah.
And so therefore you don't understand that actually we're talking about how the product is being developed and what products you invest in and why and how and all those things.
And all the experiences around the product.
So it's people feeling that they have a responsibility there.
Would you say that the love brand's got a lovely reputation, or would you say that the love brand is kind of the best reputation you can get?
It's probably the least researched kind of philosophy.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Because clients always ask me like we want to be a love brand. Like this is the goal. Make it happen. It's like, come on, guys. Like what even does it mean?
Yeah, I think again, like with a lot of these things, people are trying to say the same thing. Love, I think you could say, hey, hang on, do you even love a brand? Is that, I mean, surely we can reserve some words for just, the people you love.
Yeah. Many different types.
But the intent is there, but really the action that's involved in that is, a repeat habitual involvement with that brand. And so we then call that love. So they keep buying it. So we assume that therefore they love it. Or is it just an ingrained habit that they've got? Is that love? I don't know that it's love. So really what the client is saying is we want to have loyal brand interaction. Right?
Yeah.
And that isn't only under the category of love. And then even if you're talking about brand growth, as someone like a Les Burnett or even Ehrenberg Bass disciples we'll be talking about that idea that I think the classic example is a pair of Levi's jeans. Like you can love the jeans, but you still only have two legs. So you can only buy so many jeans, and it's better for growth that, more people are like, yeah, I like your brand because they'll buy a pair of jeans every year, but there's more of us, right?
Yeah.
Of us than the passionate core. So if love brand steers you towards being so obsessed with the target audience that they have to do nothing other than get a tattoo of your brand on their thing, you're probably not focused on the audience that's going to grow you enough.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking back to the idea of you mentioned that you are not revolutionizing something, but you are more like a glue of the existing concept and helping them to work together in the same language in a company. How are you guys dealing with the concepts which are a bit against to each other? Because what comes to my mind when you start talking about it are the two guys from here, Australia, Mark Ritz and Byron Sharp. They always find out some area where they more pushing to each other, and I understand it's part of the game of them.
It's an inception thing, right?
Yeah.
Marketing people using marketing tactics to make themselves.
Oh yeah. How are you guys dealing with that? Like when, for example, the client says, "Okay, I want to put all this together, but there are some concepts where I need to decide which one is the right one."
I think we find there's very few things that actually completely disagree with each other.
Okay.
It's really hard to have a conversation about marketing in a generic sense, because the second we say, okay, we're talking about the company that sells these glass jars, a lot of those what feel like diverse thinking actually come into focus and say, oh no, but in this case, we agree with this. So sometimes it's like, well, what kind of marketing are you thinking? Because if you talk to someone who works in, they work on a SaaS brand, they really think that every marketing, they come from that lens where, someone else works in a physical product sense, they'll be quite different again. And so all we're talking about here is diagnosing and how you treat those specific things. So I don't think, as an example, that Ritson and
Sharp
and again, everyone from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute necessarily disagree. They probably overlap more than they don't overlap.
Oh, okay. I got it. I got it. So it's more like a customized thing. So
yeah, I think that's the thing that changes. I mean, we generally say that there is an anatomy of marketing. This is the overall thing, and we usually have a sort of idea of you can have a baby and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they have the same anatomy. And this analogy is similar to you can have a startup company and you can have McDonald's or Nike. They have the same anatomy, but they have very different goals and objectives, and they have different resources at that time. So prioritization starts kicking in pretty heavy, and what is needed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that the rules of marketing change.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that they have more resources to throw at it. So when someone's like, you got to do growth marketing or you got to do digital marketing, it's like they're actually all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find, as we're saying, is where you believe you would treat it. So a physio and a chiropractor do disagree with each other the way they would approach the treatment. But if we put a particular injury in front of them, you might find the chiropractor goes, I'm not the one to treat that injury.
Oh, that's true.
A physio may be better to do this thing. And that, you know immediately, that's someone who's aware of what they're doing. Because, if you think you answer everything, then you're...
Oh, yeah.
It'll probably
It's kind of, step out from the ego and then, I got it. You actually got the point. So in the ideal world, in this part, like you put the game plan on the table, which is the anatomy, all this area of the body, and then you continue with the client or with the agency, focusing on the areas which are like prior to solve the problems and things like that. Are you also continuing with mapping the problems and diagnosis of the whole brand of the business?
We certainly look at two parts. There is the sort of consultancy side, which is delivery, and this is actually working with clients and solving it. That's the clients we're working on. But then also, the training side, which is the change management of an organization trying to lift its head up and understand how marketing works across the organization. And it sort of comes back to the training bit. It's just like, hang on, guys, we need to understand each other, because if you've ever been, I'm sure you've probably had this experience, you do all this work and you watch it not work. You go, well, we did all these cool things, and it goes to the brand and then they just drop it. So, well, again, the people didn't understand what was happening, or there was changeover of sort of leadership, etc. They're not speaking the same language there. But, going back to the question you asked before around, what does success look like? I mentioned Agile. I think that is an example that I think has added so much value to so many organizations, and yet in different shapes and forms, right? Because everyone starts making it their own. But even, Brad Frost introducing the idea of, design system, or the atomic design system, as he had coined it, coming again from a sort of digital product space. This kind of voices are not heard enough in, management consultancy. That they're not understood. And so you can go back to a digital product. You can see exec teams saying, "Oh, we should change this about the product," and it's like, "Oh, cool, that'll take 12 months." Oh, or why is it going to take 12 months? Like, we got to move at the speed of business. Okay, yeah, but you completely built the whole thing, completely, messed up. You didn't understand how everything connects. And I think that if you don't understand how creativity is as a system under, brought across the whole business, then you think that you can change things. I think that there needs to be more voices talking with CEOs, more creative voices in that space, saying, "Hey, you've got to understand how things are designed and created within your organization."
I get you. I'm just thinking about like when you have all this in front of you guys. Back to the idea of having some kind of like mission to the moon or mission to the Mars. What is actually your mission to the Mars? What is that kind of beyond endgame something? What you are guys trying to put all this?
Yeah, we're revisiting a lot of that stuff now to sort of try and understand how it all actually does connect. For us, definitely this idea of sort of the purpose. I think we believe that there is a system to everything. There's a system to life at the atomic level, at to the way the world works. There's an ecosystem, there's a respiratory system. We believe that absolutely, if we understood how everything works, we could do phenomenal things, and maybe AI will play a role in that. And so that is our sun. That basically that navigates what we're actually trying to do. And then within our industry, what we're looking at is from a business design consultancy, and we use that phrase because we work with the whole of the business, and looking at the marketing and how that, and understand that the whole of business has a function to play within marketing. That within that we believe that there is an anatomy of marketing, an overall system that everyone can understand, that everyone can play within that. And I guess the short-term mission for us, I mean, it's sort of broken up into different sprints, but like, authoring this book, socializing these concepts, I think is on the forefront of what we're trying to do.
Oh yeah, looking forward to that. Definitely, if there is a chance to like subscribe to some kind of your mailing list about that or anything, like just we can put it under the podcast, and people who are interested in
or just on LinkedIn,
or subscribe you.
Hit me up on LinkedIn, and we can point you to different places. But
definitely. You mentioned like we named a bunch of like challenges of nowadays. Most of them like coming from the inside of the company. What you are feeling are the external ones, the external challenges like technologies and stuff, what's happening around the world nowadays for the marketing?
Well, I guess they're kind of related, the inside and the outside, but the sort of three main ones that we've sort of identified, and they are what kind of sits between a company and their customers. First one we've spoken at length already about, which is just common language, just understanding each other and what this actually means, what we need to do. And that's where I think the focus needs to be. What do you mean? I mean, even if you're talking about emerging technologies, organizations need to understand what are the technologies, what do they actually do, and what is their implication before even figuring out what we're going to do. The second one we internally, as we've sort of again touched on, is this idea that the customer journey is broken up by department. So who owns the customer is a phrase that we'll hear a little bit. And there's inefficiencies with that because different departments are off doing different things, asking who the customer is, where there's the same customer. It's just that you're in charge of other parts. And so there's sort of duplicity of investment happening and confusion. And the third one is about measurement. So it's sort of like this phrase that we use, which is, measuring for procrastination rather than progress. So measurement, needing to justify our decisions constantly. And it means that so many people are focused on trying to measure everything before then deciding whether or not they can actually do anything. So they can prove that it's the right answer. They're a little bit sort of stuck, not wanting to take those things. It's interesting when we had those conversations about with different leaders around the world, when we're talking about what are your biggest challenges, competition's not one of them. And I think it's not one that comes up because, well, it's kind of, everyone's got it. It's sort of like
it's part of the game.
It's sort of part of it. Like, I guess there's this idea that you need to, that you've got it, but it's not necessarily a problem. You sort of know that it's there. But clearly, if there was no competition, you could just suck.
That's true.
And you're the only,
no pressure.
No car brand as long as
it's like in the Rush movie. You know the movie, right? Like Rush, like these two guys driving Formula, and in the end you realize that Niki Lauda always loved this guy because he helped him to be the best one, right? Because he was still pushing on it.
Exactly. And there's plenty of examples like that.
Exactly.
Pepsi and Coke being one of those.
I worked and I'm working for Pepsi in Europe, and it's actually, I'm enjoying more to work for number two or in sometimes
it's way
than for number one.
Because
it's quite challenging.
Nothing to lose. Well, you do, but you didn't. I agree. I agree. It's good. But if you mean to extend that to sort of like technology and stuff that's coming, I think that on the AI front, which was mentioned, like that's not my field, but it's
I find out pretty much nice thing about when it comes to the AI, especially to the language models, is they are so powerful if you know how to ask, which is still related to what you mentioned here. Like if you can name it your challenges, you can name it how to actually measure them, then AI can help you a lot. But if you can't do these things, AI trying to find out the way how to help you, but it's kind of messy because as exact you are able to be what's the problem is and what is the thing what you are looking at, like the data model of AI, especially the ChatGPT is so huge. So even most of the people just asking to AI for many different stuff and getting many different answers. And when I'm having my workshops how to use AI for creative process, I'm explaining like try to just ask how, for example, I don't know, when is the building in a fire and you are asking AI what to do with that, and you say like what's happening while is the fire in the building, the answer is going to be like that people probably take some water buckets and start doing. And when you ask AI, you are the captain of New York Fire Department something, what is the process of when the building is, and then you get a specially exact answer about what's happening with the there is a alarm, the people start preparing the cars and all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Same question with just difference. Like you are someone who is really insider of this, and all these little changes when in the questions to the AI make a big difference. So
big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that all that's revealing is exactly how it is with everything else. I mean, the human response is slower than the AI, but it's still, do you know what question to ask? And I think that's why you need to hear other people's perspectives, try and get different knowledge in from wherever, and admit your own mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Things where you've gone, oh, okay, that was completely wrong, but that's okay, because what am I learning now that I can then apply? And that's what I think, that AI is accelerating that thing where you can just all of a sudden do this. But I love that trick you're talking about, which is something I've done when we speak about lateral, creating for lateral problem solving, is wearing different hats. And it is something we've brought into the anatomy of marketing. But with students, I used to do this concept of, pretty radical hats, like, wear Hitler's hat, where someone else is, because you want to go like, how would that person solve the thing? I love that. It's not to agree with that person by any stretch, but we'd also, wear an alien.
Represent some kind of, I got you.
Yeah, be an alien, be something, because all of a sudden you're realizing that you're the constant in all these things you're trying to solve. And you're always trying to break the position from your perspective by actively even saying, right, for the next half an hour, I'm going to try and solve this problem, but I am someone else. But I love when you throw in AI there, all of a sudden that accelerates it all.
Do you guys think that actually let's say the purpose of your company, it's like a positive change or something like that, or positive change in the industry, or
I'm not, look, I think words like that are thrown around a lot, like positive impact and those things. I mean,
or is it more like a natural thing it's not like a purpose, it's like, because I remember once you mentioned that there is a strategic concept that when you are saying the opposite thing, do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Is it like this example? Like it's something natural? And
I think for us, it's when you see that something's broken, you just kind of want to fix it. I think we're as basic as that, where we're like, hang on, that's not working, and I think there's a better way to do it. And that's what we're getting more and more feedback, that actually what we're doing is people like, that's good. We see it. We see with clients, they're like, oh my God, I actually can, like, helicopter view, I can kind of see all possible ways I can, approach marketing, or what are all the things. And it's not rocket science. It's the opposite. I think the best compliment we get is people just to say, that's very well presented logic. Thank you. Right. Because what we don't want is more confusion. We want all these things mean this.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, now I get it. And then you can go deep in specialties and try to understand things, but how does it actually work together? What was your question? What were you saying?
No, I was thinking like if your long-term purpose is actually the positive change of what you are doing in the industry, but then I find myself and remind the story what you already told me, like not putting into the strategic approach or in the purpose something what is kind of like opposite of doing stuff which is natural for what you are doing. You are doing consultancy to get better some of the areas in the companies.
Yeah, I would like us to, continue growing our client base, but I'm more interested in working with anyone globally and clients and agencies as well. We're kind of like going, hey, let's actually try and see how we all work together. This is a far healthier space, because then you can start saying, hey, that's why this thing we've got to do is so important. You don't have to do all things in marketing. And I think you don't need to say, I'm an agency and I can do everything. It's actually, we do this and it's so damn important because it affects all these other areas. And that's all that the relationship needs to be understood. So we understand that, you could probably lose a couple of these fingers and you're probably okay. But there are certain things that are pretty critical. And if that's one of the things you do, that's important.
Yeah. Okay. I feel pretty much we went all through this and it was really exciting. So thank you so much, actually, Kieran, for coming, for like explaining all the insights about your book and about your ideas and opinions about the marketing field. I hope you enjoyed as me. I hope you guys, if you are with us now, actually, that you spend with us, let's say a couple minutes. So thank you for that. And I would be more than happy to find out in your comments like what the marketing field is in your companies or in your agencies, and what do you think about it. Definitely follow Kieran on the LinkedIn and the story how the anatomy of marketing goes. And thank you for being with us, and don't forget to follow us on the Instagram or Spotify or YouTube. And yeah, thanks again, Kieran. It was great.
Yeah, thanks for all your insightful questions.
Thank you. Okay, cheers, bye.